Yeah. Hello. Hello. All right. Okay. So sorry about the glitch that we faced. We'll restart the session again. Anyways, what I was trying to tell you in the previous session was the session that we have for today is on speed maths, particularly for CAT is written, but please understand whatever we are going to discuss here would be relevant for any other competitive exam as well. In fact, I can actually go on to say whatever we are going to discuss and then we'll try to practice a little bit more would be helping us in several other formats of the test, like not just management entrance tests, but also the government jobs, the bank jobs, all right, etc. So many other places also. This is one thing that would definitely be valued. If you are able to improve this, this will definitely push up your scores a little bit. So let's get started with it. Now that's what I've also kind of highlighted here too. When we are talking about speed maths, so the idea is to improve the speed of calculation, which eventually results in higher scores, better scores, all right? How does it happen, all right? Why does it happen? What does speed maths entail? What all does it include? All of that we'll be discussing in this particular session. Let me quickly share the outline for today's session. So today we are going to look at, of course, we'll try to understand what speed maths all about is. Is it just calculations, all right? Is it just some kind of techniques that we need to cram up and then just reuse it, practice it, reuse it? Is it just that or little more than that? We'll try to look at that. Then we'll look at one very confusing aspect that students have, which is the difference between speed maths and Vedic maths. How do they differ? Why speed maths, more importantly, why exactly this particular topic or this class would be important? Why are you required to put in the efforts to understand the various techniques involved in speed maths? What's the benefit out of it? How do we improve? So what are the various techniques, methods that we need to have? Of course, we need to back it up with a lot of practice, and you need to understand that a particular multiplication method, for example, or some fraction concept or technique that you learn, it could be used in several topics, different situations for sure. We shall be taking up a few examples, right? And finally, I'll open it up for Q&A. So this session would be roughly for around 40 minutes, I believe. I'll try to finish it in 40 minutes. And after that, we can go on to the Q&A part in case you have any queries. Let's get started. So what is speed maths? So speed maths, if you look at it, it is one of the important ingredients that you need for success in competitive exams. See, when we say competitive, now one of the prime elements of competitive exams is it is all time based. Limited time is what you have. Now, in that given amount of time, you are expected to perform at the best possible levels, which would definitely result in your success. So success in competitive exams is based on several aspects. I've just noted down few of them. One of them is, of course, your concept application. You need to have fair idea as to what exactly the concept to be used in a given situation. What are the various applications that we can have for that concept? Example, if you have concept of Pythagoras theorem, for example, or let's say similar triangles. Now, similar triangles is one concept, but it could be used in variety of problems. So that's what I mean by concept as well as application. You need to understand that very clearly. Now, the topic for today, speed. Speed is also one essential ingredient which we have for our overall success. Now, when I say speed, speed could be interpreted in two ways. One is your calculation speed, and the other will be your speed of interpretation. How quickly you read and understand a given problem, a given paragraph, a given caselet, all right? How quickly, how easily you understand. That would also be, of course, be impacting your overall speed. Speed of calculation and speed of interpretation, two types of speeds. And there are so many other test taking skills like prioritization, which question to select, question selection, time management, right? So many other things also would be playing an important role, but speed definitely is one of those ingredients. So today we're going to talk about this particular point, speed. What is speed maths? So speed maths basically is a set of rules that we have, some methods that we have, some techniques, right, which eventually result in lesser time. It will make us more efficient, right? as far as problem solving is concerned. We'll take examples, all right? So basically think of speed maths as something which would actually help you in reducing the amount of time you would take for answering the question. Example, I'll just take a small example at this stage. Suppose if someone asks us what is 43 into say 31. Now, in order to answer this particular question, how quickly are you able to do it? Are you taking 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 20 seconds? You need pencil paper for that. You need a calculator for that. All these things would be determining our success overall in the competitive exam. Because see, CAT of course has a calculator, on-screen calculator is there, but any candidate who is prepared or is preparing, keeping in mind the fact that he or she will not be using the calculator at all, or to very bare minimum extent, that particular candidate I believe would be standing a good chance of clearing the CAT examination with flying colors. Because see, that is why I keep on saying in our classes also, do not rely a lot on calculators, because recently there was an incident, all right, when I went for the test. We, as part of our job here, would be taking the test. So over there, one of the during the DI section, right? So when I was trying to use the calculator, I was not able to, because every time I was clicking once, it was clicking so many times. The number was appearing so. So that kind of glitches might be there. So again, of course, if there is some question which definitely needs calculator, use it, but try to avoid it, I'm saying. So that is where the speed maths part would be coming in. It will become very important. Which exams test your speed math skills? I would say probably all your management entrance tests, all of them. Your UG examinations, right? Government examinations, bank jobs, SSC, your other government jobs that you have, they will all be testing you on your calculation skills. Now, if you compare that with Vedic maths, now what is Vedic maths? Vedic maths, people consider to be very similar to speed maths. So thus I put them side by side, but there is a small difference between the two. Now, Vedic maths is set of some ancient sutras that we have, or sub sutras that we have. Based on that, sutra is basically like some rule that we have, right? Based on those sutras, the calculations become easier. So primarily, one second. Primarily, Vedic maths is used in pattern-based calculations, algebraic expressions, questions involving multiplications, divisions, squares. Primarily, it's limited till here only, right? Whereas if you talk about speed maths, the scope is much wider, right? We'll talk about that too. Speed maths uses Vedic maths and more. So if you look at it, Vedic maths is actually part of speed maths. It's kind of subset of speed maths. Because in speed maths, of course, you will deal with calculations, but besides calculation, you will also be dealing with some important rules. You'll need to remember that. Some important properties of perfect square, for example, some important properties of prime numbers, for example, right? All of that will also constitute speed math, not just calculation. So that's the basic difference that we have between speed maths and your Vedic maths. But people generally consider them to be one and the same, right? But there is some difference. Why do we need to invest our time and effort in mastering the skill of speed maths? What's the need? So let's try to understand that. But I would like to take this up in the form of Q&A. I'll be asking you some questions. I'll give you some 10 seconds time only in between two questions. Try to see how many questions are you able to answer, but please try it only for 10 seconds. So if you're able to get to the answer after like 15-20 seconds, let's not count it, because anyways after 10 seconds I'll be moving on. So the first question that I have for you that you can right now answer is this: how quickly can you answer? Good evening, Aditya. Hi, James. Yeah, so that's it. We'll move on to next. This one, how quickly can you answer? Next one, how quickly can you answer this one as well? Next one. 288 by 17 approximately is how much? Next one. 43 into 43. All right, that's it. 31.25% of 224. All right. So these were some questions which we might discuss. We'll see, because there are some other questions also lined up. So just check how many of these questions were you able to answer within 10 seconds. If you're able to answer one of them, it's a good job done. If you're able to answer none of them within 10 seconds, then I hope you understand the importance of speed maths even more. Because if you look at your competitive exams, be it CAT or bank or any other examinations, one thing that is pretty common is you will get to see such calculations, percentage calculations, basic multiplications or divisions or additions, right? Or ratio calculations, simplifications. You'll get to see all these type of questions. Now, this will be, of course, probably part of the main question, not the main question entirely, but still if you go slow here, then of course it's going to impact you overall at the question level too. So this is why learning some techniques which helps us in solving these questions easily is very much required. For example, I'll probably take up one of these questions. So 324 into 11, can we do it within 10 seconds? The answer is probably yes. The method is as follows. So 3 to 4, if I want to multiply with 11, immediately in my head, I'll assume a 0 in the beginning and at the end of the number. And then just go on adding consecutive digits, pair of consecutive digits together. So here 0 and 4 will give you 4, 4 and 2 will give you 6, 2 and 3 will give you 5, sorry. This will give you 5. And 3 and 0 will give you 3. So my answer will be 3564. Right now we have taken around 15 seconds probably, right? But if you practice this more and more, and when only you're doing it, you're not explaining it to others, the speed can improve tremendously, all right? It will definitely improve. So competitive exams, why particularly speed maths is important? As I said some time back, it's a time-based test. There's a certain time that you have per section or for the test. You need to perform in that particular time limit given to you. Most of the questions that we have in our competitive exams, be it XAT, be it CAT, right, they are asked in MCQ format. Now, what is MCQ? MCQ is multiple choice questions, the 4-5 option choices that you get after each question. Now, how is this related to speed maths? Why are we talking about MCQ, non-MCQ? We'll get to that. The next point, approximate answers were perfectly fine in exam conditions, particularly ones where MCQs are being asked. But then beside MCQ, I also put a star mark to indicate a small point. This star indicates that when you're dealing with a question, asking you to find out, suppose, let's take this one, 288 by 17 is approximately how much? Now here, suppose you have your option choices like A is 15, B is 16, C is 17, and D is suppose 19. Okay, these 4 option choices are given. Now here, the moment you have your option choices, there is no real need of calculating the exact value for this. Why? Because if you look at the option choices, they are fairly distant. In the sense, 288 by 17, the value one can clearly understand will be in decimals, point something, right? And if you observe one more thing, can we think of 288 as close to 289? And 289 is nothing but 17 square. And hence, can I say my answer should be very close to 17? Little less than that. So probably something like 16.93, 16.92, 16.94, something on those lines. So thus, going by this understanding, one can easily mark option choice C as the answer. Now we were able to do this, mark C as the answer without exactly calculating it, because we went for something called as approximate answers. So approximate answers, as far as your competitive exams are concerned, will work mostly fairly, all right? They'll be working. So thus, in our examination, approximate answer is generally preferred over exact answer. Don't get stuck in getting the exact answer. This is one simple technique through which you can save a few seconds, right? Maybe sometimes minutes. Next, why speed maths make complete sense? Let's try to understand. I hope we are clear with these points, right? But let's try to understand even more. So if you're good with speed maths, if you're good with numbers, you're able to visualize, multiply, divide numbers approximately, not exactly, that will simplify the overall process for many complex problems. So sometimes what happens is I hope you understand, if some of you have already taken CAT in the past, you understand that sometimes you'll have to assume some values for the given variable in the question and then try to answer it. Or a long series is given running till infinity. For that series question, maybe the first 2-3 terms alone will help me identify my answer. No need to go till infinity. The first 2-3 terms will help us identify the answer. Now, if you're good with maths, speed maths, you can actually do it on the go. All right. There is no need of calculator, no need of pencil, paper, etc. At all. So this will overall be helping you in simplifying the process, I would say. Useful in making important observations related to the question. If you're good with numbers, for example, suppose you're seeing some percentages, 33.33%, 42.85%, 37.5%, etc. Suppose. So here, when looking at these percentages, if someone is practiced in speed maths, he or she immediately would recall this is nothing but 1/3. Of course, after some practice, they would get to know this. This is nothing but 3/7, and this is nothing but 3/8. So based on these fractions, there is a certain assumption they will make. For example, if I'll give you a question, a person makes some earning in a month. 33.33% goes on child's education. 42.85% of the remaining goes on, let's say, food and grocery. 37.5% of the remaining goes for entertainment, and the remaining is saved. Now, finally, the question is, what is the amount that is saved if his expenses on child education was suppose 9,000 rupees? What is the amount he's saving? Now, in such a question, if you take the variable as x and try to solve it, so you have to take 33.33% of x. Then after that, whatever is remaining, you need to take 42.85% of that. Then whatever is remaining, you need to take 37.5% of that. So this way, the problem will become really, really complicated. Instead, if you deal with fractions, things will be a lot easier. So this is what I mean by making useful in making some important observations. Elimination of option choices. If you're good with maths and all, calculations and all, you can actually do that. So higher speed results in naturally higher attempts, and higher attempts, correct attempts, results in higher marks, which will eventually push up our percentiles and our chances of getting selected. Think of this particular skill. Speed math skill has not something to do with examination that I have to learn and all. Think of it in long-term sense, because speed maths, that is knowledge about numbers and all, is going to help you in your finance related, analytics related profiles later on in life also. Suppose you are some analyst, stock market analyst, over there also, after your MBA, of course, over there also your skill on numbers and all will be paying heavily, right? It will be very, very useful. How to improve? Just few points about how do we improve in our speed maths. So there are some techniques that you need to improve, learn first. So techniques, several techniques that we have, techniques for addition, techniques for fractions, techniques for comparison of fractions, techniques for percentages, techniques for multiplication, right? So there are so many techniques. Of course, in this particular session, we shall be discussing a few of them, but the starting point would be learning some techniques. So what are the techniques? Multiplication techniques. So multiplication by 5, there is a method. 11, we already saw there is a method. 25, there is a method. By one more than the previous one, right? Ekadikena purvena, right? It's a Vedic math sutra. We'll try to discuss it here. Perfect squares, some techniques. Numbers ending with 5, there is a special case. Numbers still 75, there's a separate. So for example, 63 square if I wish to find out, 42 square if I wish to find out. How can we do it? Immediately, like almost instantly. So there's a tip that I would like to, of course, after we discuss this, all of this, there's a tip that I have for all of you. Please, by heart, perfect squares till 25. Fractions and percentages is one more thing, one of the important things that I would like to take up in today's session. So let me quickly take up this technique with small examples, of course. Multiplication by 5. So suppose you have 236 into 5. You have to perform this calculation. So this is a small change in viewpoint that we can bring in the way we are looking at the problem, and we can simplify the calculation. Instead of multiplying by 5, can I think of it as, 236 into 5 can be written as 10 by 2. Because multiplication by 10 is very easy job, right? Very, very direct. So 236 I'll divide by 2. It will make it 118. 118 into 10 will make it 1180. So instead of multiplying by 5, what I would suggest is you multiply by 10 and divide by 2. So multiplication by 5, if you come across this particular calculation ever again, please try to use this. Multiplication by 11. So as we discussed some time back, we assume a 0 in the beginning and at the end, and then just go on adding consecutive digits starting from the right hand. So 0 and 3 will give you 3, 3 and 6 will give you 9, 6 and 2 will give you 8, 2 and 0 will give you 2. So 2893 will be our answer. So multiplication by 5, multiplication by 11, multiplication by 25 is also very similar. So suppose I want to multiply 348 into 25. So instead of multiplying by 25, what I would suggest is 348 into, I can write as 100 by 4. So divide by 4 and then multiply by 100. That will be easier as compared to multiplication by 25. So 4 goes 8 times, 32, 7 times. So 87 into 100 will give you my answer, 8700. So multiplication by 25. Now similarly, there is a method that we have for multiplication by 8, multiplication by 125 and all that. But of course, as I said, in this session, we're going to limit ourselves by one more than the previous one. So what does this sutra, this method mean is, I'll just briefly explain it. The idea of this session is, of course, not to give you mastery over different methods. The idea is just to make you all aware that there are several elements of math, quant, that you need to focus upon, one of the elements being speed maths. So one by one more than the previous one. So what it means is, observe, I have to multiply, say, 37 into 33, suppose. So the method of multiplying this is, of course, one is the usual way of multiplying wherein you form layers, add up the layers and get to the answer. Here there is a direct method. What we could do is, you multiply the units digit, 7 and 3, just multiply them blindly and put them in the right hand side. Let's call this as right hand side of the answer. So right hand side is simply product of units digits. So 7 into 3 will make it 21. Now, what will be LHS? LHS is going to be, LHS will be, you remove this 7 and 3, ignore the 7 and 3, look at the remaining number that you have. The remaining number is 3. So you multiply this 3, the remaining number that we have in the given number, by the next number. Ek adhikena. So adhik would mean more. So one more than the previous number. So whatever is the number remaining, one more than that. So 3 into 4 will make it 12. So this is going to be your LHS. So thus 37 into 33 shall give us the answer as 12 and 21 placed together, which is 1221. So this is what we mean by this method, by one more than the previous one. Perfect squares, for numbers ending with 5, there is a very direct method. For example, one method, the method is any number ending with 5. If you want to find square of this, of course, there is restriction for this, and don't blindly apply this on any given two numbers. Here, for example, restriction is this remaining number should be same in both the numbers. Second restriction is sum of the unit digits should be 10. It cannot be anything else. So A5 whole square will be ending with 25 always, and the remaining part of my answer will be nothing but the remaining number into one more than that. Example, I want to find out 75 square. It is going to be nothing but 5 square will give you 25. Remaining number is 7. So 7 multiplied by 8 will give you 56. So 5625 is what we get here. Okay. So there's a method that we have for perfect squares till 75 also, right? Let me just quickly share this and then we'll move on to the next set of questions. So perfect square still 75. So for this, the tip is please by heart perfect square still 25. Don't ignore that. That's very much important as far as this method is concerned. This method is concerned. So how do we find out square of suppose 42 square? I want to find this. How do we do it? So again, here my answer will be obtained in two portions, right hand side and left hand side. The right hand side will be obtained as, observe, take the given number as it is, 42, you take it. 42, you subtract it from 50, a fixed number, 50 is fixed every time. Subtract it and square it. So thus whether you write 42 minus 50 or 50 minus 42 doesn't really matter because you're squaring it eventually. So 42 minus 50 is minus 8 square will give us 64. So that's the RHS. So right hand side, and one more thing that you need to remember in this method is it should always be a 2-digit number, always. If it is not, we'll try to add a 0 and make it a 2-digit number. Right now it is 2-digit number, so no need to worry. 64 is okay. Then come to LHS. So LHS will be obtained as, very simple, again you take the given number. Now from this you subtract another fixed number which is 25. Always we subtract 25 in LHS and we subtract 50 in RHS. And 42 minus 25 will give you what? 17. So thus putting them together, 17 and 64, my answer is 1764. Okay. So this is what this method is, and fractions and percentages are very, very important as far as your speed maths is concerned. Let's look at some of the examples here. Look at this question. I give you some 15 seconds to answer this. See, again, these are questions from few quant topics, but the point I'm trying to stress upon is the elements of speed maths are going to help us in questions like these. So let's look at it. So average marks of students in a class of 42 students. So number of students is 42. N is 48. So average is 48. What is the sum? So just now we saw, can we write the sum as? Sum from the conceptual knowledge you would know is nothing but average into number of elements. So my answer will be nothing but 42 into 48. Just now we saw that method, one more than the previous one. So 42 into 48. How do I get the RHS? RHS will be nothing but simple product of units digits. So 2 into 8 is 16. What about LHS? LHS will be the number 4, the remaining number 4. That's remaining, right? 4 remaining. And next number, 4 into 5. Which will make it 20. So 2016 is going to be our answer as far as this question is concerned. So the question, of course, is from averages. But the point is, if you're good with your calculations, you can actually do well. Very, very quickly, you can answer the question. Next one. So this is a question from your algebra quadratic equations, you may say, all right. So if x plus 1 by x is 32, find the value of x square plus 1 by x square. So how do we think about it? So let's straight away go for this. I'll just help you solve this. So here, if you look at this, x plus 1 by x, some other variable is 32. And I want square of it. So let's square on both sides. So when you square on both sides, what do we get? 32 square. Now, how much is 32 square? Now for this, we can actually use the method that we have discussed about squares. So if you use that method, 32 square is going to be 1024. So x plus 1 by x whole square will be what? X square plus 1 by x square plus 2 into x into 1 by x, which is 2. And hence, can I say my answer, x square plus 1 by x square will be nothing but 1024 minus 2. Now, once again, if someone is comfortable with calculations, he or she can get to the answer very, very easily. Probably, if they're really good, they become really good, they can do it mentally also. And these are the kind of questions that we get in our competitive exams, right? It's not something which is made up, right? These are the type of questions that have been coming up in CAT. Now we have access to all the previous year CAT papers, right? From 2017 onwards, you can actually go there and check what are the kind of questions you're getting. A train of length 200 meters crosses a 350-meter long bridge. So bridge is to 350 meters. There's a train which is trying to cross it. The length of the train is 200 meters. It crosses in 44 seconds. What is the speed of the train in kmph? Not the regular speed. He's not just interested in speed, but speed in kmph. Now observe, for this train to cross this bridge, what's the distance it will travel? The distance traveled by the train. See, again, these are the things that you'll be learning in the concept class. Right now, please accept this is what it is, because the focus for this session is calculation, not the concept as such. So distance traveled by the train will be sum of the two. 350 and 200 will be 550. And thus can I say speed of the train will be nothing but distance traveled in how much time? 44 seconds. Simplify, we'll go 11 4 times, 1150 times, 2 times, 225 times. So it's going to be 25 by 2, but the point is it's meters per second. I want my answer in kmph. So thus my answer finally. So there's one more layer of calculation that we'll have to perform. And the method of converting meters per second into kmph is you need to multiply with 18 by 5. That's how you convert. So my answer will be into 18 by 5. So 9 times, this will go 5 times. 5 into 9 is 45 kmph. So if someone is good with calculations, even if they know the even if they know the concept, suppose if someone is not so good with calculation, they will struggle with these calculations. If someone is not really comfortable, look at this one. It's one simple interest, compound interest. It says a certain amount under CI becomes 3600 at the end of 5th year and 5184 at the end of 7th year. So by the way, the formula that we have is 5th year amount is P into 1 plus R by 100 whole power number of years, which is 5 in this case. And at the end of 7th year is whole power 7. This is 5184. He's asking us for R. Simple. Now you divide these two. The moment you divide, P will cancel out. Whole power 5 will cancel out. You'll be left with whole square. So it's going to be 5184 upon 3600. Now let's simplify this. So when you try to simplify this, so 12 will go 300 times. So 12 here will go 4 times, 48, 38, 3 times, 24, 2 times. We can still cancel out 6, I think. So 6, or probably we could also cancel out 12 again. So 12 goes 25 times, and here 12 goes 36 times. So it's 36 by 25, which is nothing but 6 by 5 whole square. So now everything will depend on how quickly can you divide, how quickly can you cancel out common factors, multiply, all of that. So here 1 plus R by 100 is nothing but 6 by 5. And hence when you solve it, the value of R will be 20%. So that's going to be our answer. Now the same question, if you know if you have conceptual understanding, you can actually do it without these elaborate calculations. So in CI, the point is the final amount increases at the rate of interest. So at the end of 5th year, if it was 3600, 6th year it will be something, 7th year it will be something which is 5184. From here to here, if you notice, you see this is where the speed match will help, observations and all. From here to here, if you notice, the increase is of around 1584. When you go for percentage calculations, 1584 on 3600 will be around 40%. Around 40%, little more than that, 40, 45%, something like that, right? Now what you can do is, if you're in the test, you can look at the option choices. For 2 years, if it is around 40, so for 1 year, it will be around 20. That's what we got here. So my answer, I could say, just by looking at the numbers, if you're good with speed maths, my answer should be somewhere around 20%. Now problem, when do we face a problem here? If you have multiple options which are close to 20. So suppose you have something like 20.2%, 20.3%, 19.8%, and then 20%, then we'll be in trouble. But if the options are far, you can easily actually answer this question. Shopkeeper by mistake calculates the profit percentage on selling price and gets the answer as 33 point. Profit percentage answer as this. What is the actual profit percentage? Actual profit percentage basically means on CP is how much. So for this there is a small trick. The trick is, if profit percentage on SP is some X by Y, some percentage. For example, here he says 33.33. So in this case it is 1 by 3. Then the profit percentage on CP You would learn this in your course. Then the profit percentage on your CP will be nothing but x upon y minus x. The logic for this is fairly simple. Observe, what does this 1 by 3 mean? If your selling price is 3 rupees, according to this fraction, the profit should be 1 rupee. In any transaction, if selling price is 3 and profit is 1, cost price will be 2 rupees. So thus in the denominator, you should get cost price because I want my profit percentage on CP. So thus my answer will be x by y minus x, which happens to be 1 by 2, and 1 by 2 in percentage will be 50%. So these type of questions can be solved in fraction of a minute. So probably 10 seconds, 12 seconds, 15 seconds max, I would say. And if you get a question like this in CAT, which is not very alien, we get such questions in CAT, we shouldn't be missing out on those jackpots. So final thoughts quickly to wrap it up, what we discussed in this session in the past half an hour. Learning and practicing of these techniques, speed maths techniques, is really essential, right? Without knowing the technique, you cannot even practice it because you need to understand it first and then you go on practicing it. Only practice will not help you. And try to apply it when you're practicing it now. Let's say you're going for some time, speed, distance topic or some geometry topic. See if there is a chance of applying speed maths concepts, some multiplication technique, some ratio technique. Please do apply it. The more you apply, the better would be the learning. One more advice would be, please ensure that practice the speed maths aspect, right? Once you'll be done with the course here also at time. And even before that, I would say, please try to practice basic multiplications, I'm saying. Try to do it mentally. That will help you a lot. And revisit. Always revisit. So with this, we have come to the end of the session. In case of any questions, good evening, Ashok. If there are any questions that you wish to ask, please feel free to ask. So otherwise, we'll just wrap it up here. Really glad, Somrex, that it was helpful for you. But please keep practicing this more and more. As I said at the end of the session, the more you practice, the better would be the overall advantage you will gain. All right, guys, and thank you and all the very best.